It rarely feels dramatic while it's happening. There's no clear moment where you can say, this is overthinking. It feels like responsibility, like caution, like trying to get things right. A thought appears, then another, and before you realize it, your mind is looping, replaying conversations, imagining outcomes, revisiting decisions. Overthinking doesn't usually announce itself as distress. It disguises itself as problem solving. But psychologically, it hurts far more than we admit. Not because thinking is bad, but because overthinking traps the mind in motion without resolution. It creates activity without progress. People who overthink are often trying to prevent pain. They analyze to avoid mistakes. They rehearse to avoid embarrassment. They imagine scenarios to avoid being caught off guard. On the surface, this looks like intelligence or preparedness, but internally, it feels exhausting because the mind never rests. It's always scanning for what could go wrong, and a brain that's constantly scanning begins to treat everyday life as a threat. Overthinking turns neutral moments into heavy ones. A delayed reply becomes a story. A small change in tone becomes a warning. A simple choice becomes a moral test. The mind fills in gaps with worst-case interpretations, not because it wants to suffer, but because it's trying to stay safe. Psychologically, overthinking is often rooted in uncertainty and tolerance. When not knowing feels unbearable, the mind keeps thinking, hoping clarity will appear. But clarity rarely comes from rumination. It comes from action, rest, or time. Overthinking keeps you stuck between those options. One of the most painful parts of overthinking is how invisible it is. From the outside, nothing looks wrong. You're functioning, you're responding, you're doing what needs to be done. But inside, there's noise, constant commentary, internal debates that never reach a conclusion. This disconnect makes the pain harder to explain. People who overthink often feel weak for struggling because nothing bad enough has happened. But mental exhaustion doesn't require visible chaos. It accumulates quietly, thought by thought, loop by loop. Overthinking also distorts self-trust. When you analyze everything, you stop believing your first instincts. Every decision feels provisional. Every choice feels like it needs review. This creates a sense that you can't rely on yourself, not because you lack ability, but because you've trained your mind to doubt its own signals. Over time, this erodes confidence. You don't feel decisive. You feel hesitant, and hesitation becomes its own source of pain. Another overlooked effect is how overthinking steals presence. When your mind is constantly elsewhere, replaying the past or forecasting the future, the present moment becomes thin. You're physically here, but mentally busy. Conversations feel incomplete. Experiences feel muted. Joy feels fragile because it's always interrupted by what-ifs. This isn't ingratitude. It's cognitive overload. The brain can't fully experience now while it's busy managing imaginary futures. Overthinking hurts relationships too, though rarely in obvious ways. People who overthink often hold back. They edit themselves. They delay expression until they're sure it's safe. By the time they speak, the moment has passed. Others may interpret this as distance or disinterest, when in reality, it's internal conflict. The overthinker isn't avoiding connection. They're stuck trying to get it right. And trying to get it right all the time is lonely. There's also a physical cost. Overthinking keeps the nervous system activated. Even without conscious anxiety, the body stays alert. Muscles tense. Sleep becomes lighter. Rest feels incomplete. The body prepares for problems that never arrive. This low-grade stress wears people down. They feel tired without knowing why, drained without a clear cause. Overthinking isn't loud panic. It's quiet pressure. And quiet pressure is easy to dismiss until it becomes unbearable. Many people who overthink learned early that mistakes had consequences, that being misunderstood was risky, that clarity was expected. So the mind adapted. It learned to think ahead, to rehearse, to anticipate. This strategy may have once been protective, but what protected you then can harm you now. Because life doesn't require constant anticipation. It requires responsiveness. Overthinking confuses the two. It prepares endlessly instead of responding when needed. Another painful aspect is how overthinking turns inward. When answers don't come, people often blame themselves. Why can't I stop thinking? Why can't I just decide? This self-criticism adds a second layer of suffering. Now it's not just the thoughts that hurt. It's the judgment about having them. Overthinking becomes a personal flaw instead of a learned pattern. But patterns can be unlearned, and understanding changes how they feel. It's important to recognize that overthinking isn't a lack of strength. It's often a sign of sensitivity, of depth, of caring deeply about outcomes. But caring without containment becomes harmful. The mind needs limits. Without them, it spirals. Relief doesn't come from finding the perfect answer. It comes from recognizing when thinking has stopped being useful. That moment is subtle, but noticing it is powerful. Overthinking hurts more than we say because it disguises itself as responsibility, because it looks productive, because it's praised in some contexts. But pain doesn't disappear just because it's intellectual. Mental strain is still strain, and the cost is real. Over time, people who overthink may feel disconnected from themselves, unsure of what they want, afraid to choose, exhausted by possibilities. The world starts to feel heavy, not because it is, but because every path is being mentally walked before a single step is taken. There is a quieter way of moving through life, one where thoughts inform action instead of replacing it, one where uncertainty is allowed instead of fought. This shift doesn't require silencing the mind. It requires trusting that not every thought deserves attention. That thinking is a tool, not a command. Overthinking doesn't mean you're broken. It means your mind learned to work over time. And overtime work always comes with a cost. Recognizing that cost is the first step toward relief, not forcing calm, not demanding clarity. Just acknowledging that constant thinking is hurting you, and that you're allowed to rest your mind without solving everything first. Sometimes the most compassionate thing you can do is stop asking your thoughts to protect you from life and let yourself experience it instead.